Okay, here goes. Hello everyone, Jester Bell aka Female Frodo Baggins is here. I'm also a pumpkin. So, there was a movie that I was kind of looking forward to in the back half of the year. Tron Ares. Why? Well, despite starring Jared the Pedo Leto, that's a story for another time. It's really one of the few big movies that is releasing for the back half of the year because Hollywood hasn't programmed anything else. But with Tron Ares in particular, the trailers, I thought, looked really great. And it's really, really rare that I feel that way about a trailer, especially for a mainstream blockbuster these days. So, yeah, I was kind of looking forward to Tron Ares despite everything, but I knew this is Disney, and sometimes you have to just expect to be disappointed, and I am now that I've heard some of the plot of the movie, and I should have known because of the company behind this, but apparently, the plot of Tron Ares is going to be, or at least part of the plot, is that at the end of Tron Legacy, the main protagonist, the main male protagonist, finally accepted his father's legacy and took over his company going forward, and that he was going to make the company really successful. But apparently, as Tron Ares begins, this main male protagonist failed. According to Gizmodo, with official word of the plot of Tron Ares, Sam Flynn at the end of Tron Legacy was supposed to take over his father's company Encom with a lot of optimism for the future. However, Tron Ares will reveal that in the 14 years between the films, Encom fell on hard times. In fact, it would have folded if not for the work of the now CEO Eve Kim, played by Greta Lee. So, Tron Ares, the plot is going to be that Sam Flynn failed his father's legacy and that a woman took over and saved the company in his place. And this... Oh, first of all, my interest in Tron Ares, which I'm still planning to see and review, has gone in the toilet after hearing this. But unfortunately, I should have known, and I'm very disappointed about this, but unfortunately, this is just par for the course with the kind of male protagonists and narratives that Disney, but really all of Hollywood, has been portraying with male characters. Now, I've covered this before, but in doing these videos on the movie industry and all of this, I have uncovered things that maybe I wouldn't have thought were a big deal before. I wouldn't have thought that it was as big of a problem than that people originally made it out to be. But I have uncovered exactly just how many times this narrative that where the men are the failures, either they become failures or they just always have been, and the strong women succeed, just how many times that has gone on. And I know that I have covered this before, but for those who might be new and who might still be in denial at just how prominent this narrative in Hollywood is, let's go through it. Wreck-It Ralph, Ralph Breaks the Internet, portrays Ralph as an overpossessive best friend that does not want Vanellope to leave him, even though that would mean her own success. He is so selfish in the movie, it completely broke his character. He is so selfish in wanting Vanellope to stay with him and not achieve her own success that he essentially becomes a monster, and his character is totally assassinated in the film over this obsession with Vanellope, the strong woman who's going to go forward and be successful, versus Ralph, who is just the overpossessive best friend. Eventually, he does let her go, and the movie ends with him just being alone as a failure with no friends. You might be wondering exactly what was the point of all of that, ending on such a dour note where he ends up being the lonely failure that he always feared he would be, even as he's let her go. But that's not the only movie they done it in. In The Incredibles, Mr. Incredible is the washed-up failure no one trusts. He always fails, and they know that it's going to be the wonderful Elastigirl to bring back superheroes again. While Elastigirl spends the movie refining herself and refining the joy of being a superhero, Mr. Incredible just winds up beat up and put down throughout the movie. A needy man who just wants to recapture his glory days, and in the end, it doesn't even solve the whole dynamic between him and his wife, where he keeps failing at her job while she succeeds at the job he wants. It just kind of leaves it there, and that's that. Cars 3, Lightning McQueen realizes that his spunky, energetic trainer, female trainer, is much better at his racing, so the movie ends with a twist of her taking his place and him just accepting retirement and becoming a trainer himself. But it is the female character who overtakes him once again, while he has to accept that he couldn't achieve what he wanted to. Luke Skywalker gave up on everything. Indiana Jones gave up on everything. Obi-Wan gave up on everything. Han Solo, deadbeat dad who turned back to smuggling and then dies. Thor, bumbling idiot, while his girlfriend Jane Foster becomes worthy of the hammer. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, despite all that Scott Lang did to try to earn people's trust and prove himself a hero, he winds up being put down in the beginning of that movie hard by everyone in favor of his daughter, who he was criticizing for becoming a criminal. He didn't want her to be like him, but for some reason, everyone else in his family is encouraging it. Disney movies in particular have a habit of putting down the male character in order to elevate the female character, but let's just focus on putting down the male character specifically, because we certainly have a lot of movies out these days that are definitely afraid of portraying masculinity. I noticed that especially in the Gladiator movie. I'll just reiterate that, where none of the male characters could be masculine in an inherently masculine setting. But hey, so what if male characters from old franchises are being torn down? There are some great new ones that are coming out in these franchises. Like, couldn't criticize Disney all day, but they did come out with Strange World, a brand new Disney movie with a male lead who was gay. And Pedro Pascal has been portraying new male leads in Fantastic Four and The Mandalorian and Grogu. Pedro Pascal, who is gay. And he was also usurped by a female character in his own show. But hey, they were gonna have a new male character, a new male lead in the movie Elio, who was originally supposed to be gay. I'm noticing a pattern here. Now, first in this video, what I want to talk about is just how bad this narrative is, how demoralizing it is for everyone. Now, I want to use the comparison here of the movie Aliens to Alien 3, if you've ever seen those movies that actually star female lead Sigourney Weaver. Now, Alien 3 has gotten a lot of hate from fans of the Alien franchise. Why? Is it because the movie itself is really that bad? I personally don't think Alien 3 as an individual movie is that bad. The reason why people hate it, though, is because they chose to make Sigourney Weaver come back. And she originally wasn't supposed to be the protagonist. It was originally supposed to be an all-new character. But this was supposed to be a very dour movie set on a prison planet, and in order to bring her back for this third movie, they had to undo the success and the triumph and the growth that she and her team went through at the end of Aliens. We effectively saw all of the wins and the victories at the end of Aliens erased just so the alien could come back on this new planet and crash land and kill all her crew just so she could be a part of the movie. So that's why Alien 3 is panned by so many people, because it was so demoralizing to see Ripley, after becoming a hero and achieving all of this, just lose all that and fail with it at the beginning of the next movie, even if the rest of the movie itself wasn't necessarily bad on its own. So it is an incredibly demoralizing narrative to see all of these men that you were supposed to think had character growth, who you were supposed to identify with, that you were supposed to even look up to in certain cases, just be torn down and said that they will eventually fail. That is the narrative that is being pushed with these movies. Men will eventually fail. That is what's being pushed over and over again. And even if you haven't noticed it until this point, like, it's still there, maybe subliminally. All of these movies profess the same idea that men will eventually fail you. And on the other hand, we see the elimination of romance with men, and we see the elimination of a lot of male roles. Men can no longer be womanizing, for example. They can no longer be ladies' men. They can no longer be confident in that area. Heroes like Captain America or Aragorn or Samwise Gamgee, my best friend, they are non-existent. So we're seeing all these narratives of men being failures while the heroes and whatnot and even the strong love interests are non-existent. Jennifer Lee had made sure on her tenure at Disney Animation that the female characters would not have male love interests. But I want to get to the source of all of this, because yes, it's happening, and if you pay any attention to movies and the trends, like, this is one of the the biggest trends of all. It's happening again with Tron Ares. But instead of spending time after time just yelling about the things that I've seen happen in movies, for this video, let's get into the actual source, because originally I thought that perhaps the source of all of this could be, perhaps an overcompensation from the Me Too movement, this overcompensation of the women are going to be amazing and let's put down the men, let's be self-deprecating. I wondered if it was male executives putting out apologies for what they had done in the past after the Me Too movement. Now, I do believe that there are still plenty of men and men and women at fault for what has happened, because I think that both men and women can be terrible people, and there are both of those kinds in the industry. However, I want to share some things that I have heard, some off of rumor and some off of fact, from Disney in particular, about what actually is going on behind this. Now, allegedly, what happened after John Lasseter, who was fired from Disney Animation for alleged misconduct, is apparently someone yelled out at Disney, "Can we get a woman to run this place now?" And that woman was Jennifer Lee. Now, Jennifer Lee no longer works at Disney as of this recording. Her run was incredibly short and the worst run that I think Disney Animation has ever had. She was just terribly incompetent at running things. But I want to share something that I heard off of rumor behind the scenes. Now, this rumor comes from Film Threat. Now, you can take this or leave this, but the reason why I found any interest in this is that Film Threat is run by people who have been in the industry for a very long time, and they have their sources. And they did a series of articles as an expose of what was going on at Disney Animation during Jennifer Lee's time. And they were prompted to do this, allegedly, by ex-animators who had worked at the company during her time. And what they allege is that Jennifer Lee ran a very, very toxic work environment where she would oust people if she just didn't like them, or for disagreeing with her, or if she thought they might be a threat to her for what she wanted to do. And that it was a very, very toxic environment for the old male Disney animators who worked there, which is why a lot of them quit, which is why the animation quality sunk, because they got rid of a lot of the old animators. Which I gotta say, as some real life evidence for this being true, now that Jennifer Lee is gone, we're seeing them ask old animators to come back to teach the new generations. Why would they have to do that unless they got rid of the old animators in the first place? But yes, a very toxic environment under Jennifer Lee was alleged. So I guess that just because you hire a woman in place does not mean that the toxic environment stops. But I just have a wonder about this, once again, if this is true, and I'm going to back this up with some more concrete evidence in a second. But I was planning on perhaps doing a big video about exactly what went on behind the scenes at Disney and why they have become what they have become. And I was going back and reading articles about, the Me Too movement and John Lasseter and all of that. And, the women who felt that it was very much a boys' club in Hollywood and, upset about the mistreatment or the way that they felt excluded. And the more I read these articles and what the people would say, the more I started to wonder, how much of this is just revenge? These women were either mistreated or felt that they were excluded and mistreated in Hollywood by these men back when Hollywood, and anybody who has paid attention to Hollywood knows this, it has very much been a boys' club up to this point. Like, how much of this is revenge? Like, I was treated badly, so I'm going to treat others badly. Like in the case of, let's say, allegedly Jennifer Lee. Let's say that she worked at Disney Animation, very difficult, being a woman, probably one of the few women working there. What if some of this and some of the result of, we know factually, excluding traditional male love interests and all of that? What if the agenda behind here is, let's say, revenge on the people who treated her badly? It's definitely something to think about, because even from the people I hear who are supportive of the way that maybe movies in the modern day put down male characters and raise up female characters and portray men as himbos and weak and emasculated and silly, one of the big defenses I've heard from it was, well, women were sometimes treated badly in movies in the past, so isn't this a taste of your own medicine? But once again, I want to get into an example here that is more concrete. Leslie Headland, who did Star Wars: The Acolyte. I guarantee most of you did not watch that show, but I want to tell you what that show was about. It was all about this character, Osha, and she had a surrogate father named Sol. Osha spends the Acolyte on a journey of self-discovery of what she should be. She wanted to be a Jedi. She finds herself drawn to the dark side. And what she finds out near the end is her surrogate father lied to her about where her actual parents, who were the lesbian witches of this planet, he lied to her about the circumstances of their death, that he was responsible for them dying because of literally a crazy misunderstanding where he got scared because her mom blew up into this black alien thing. How it ends is Osha kills her surrogate father. And the big resolution is now her surrogate father is dead. This guy who loved her all this time and who wasn't honest with her about this, she kills him and runs off with her bad boy boyfriend who has validated her in the ways of the dark side. And she's going to learn the dark side. Osha is treated as completely the hero and in the right about all this. Sol is demonized despite being a character who genuinely did care about her. And oh boy, if you hear about the process behind the scenes, about how this story came about, Leslie Headland said that the Acolyte was about her own relationship with her father, that she grew up not feeling that she fit in a Christian household, that she felt more drawn to the dark side, and that her father was dying when she wrote the Acolyte. So she wrote the Acolyte as a way to deal with that. Now, she has made it very clear that Osha is a self-insert. She said that, who was the bad boy love interest? That he was like her teenage fantasy about what, her perfect love interest would be. Osha is her self-insert. Her self-insert kills her father. Leslie Headland said that she based the show off of her relationship with her father. She makes her self-insert kill her father. This was a fantasy of Leslie Headland killing her own father, where she wrote insane things, some of the most insane things I've ever heard about it behind the scenes, where she even added a little line about him saying it's okay out of anger, like he would be even taking away her decision of her killing him away from her, and that just made her so angry. Yeah, it's insane stuff. This show, which is, another show about the girl boss and putting down the old male mentor, is written by a woman with daddy issues, literally. And it gets even worse, though, because as I've been trying to emphasize on this channel, don't look at just the person who is writing this stuff. Look at the person who is hiring them. Because Leslie Headland said that she made this show based off of her relationship with her father and dealing with that. It was Kathleen Kennedy, she revealed, who hired her and asked her, make the show about your relationship with your father. Kathleen Kennedy, who is presiding over a lot of these stories about men being failures. So, yes, we get to see some of the sources for all of this stuff. Some of it, I would just speculate, is partially revenge from perhaps some of the female creatives in Hollywood who have just now, after the Me Too movement, been put in positions of power, and they are now treating people under them the same way they feel that they've been treated in the past. It's revenge. But in other cases, it is a clear-cut case of these women in Hollywood, be it Leslie Headland, or I'm starting to assume Kathleen Kennedy, harboring these really negative feelings towards men, especially the older male figures in their lives, their fathers. And this is where the narrative that men are either failures or will be failures come in. But here's the thing, as we go through that, I just think that this is even broader than a couple of women with, let's say, daddy issues or a lot of resentment held within them. Because there is a goal with all of these men are failures narrative. What it winds up doing to everyone, both men and women who watch this stuff, is it winds up demoralizing them. Yes, obviously it demoralizes men to always see heroes become failures, but it demoralizes me as well. Yeah, just like the Aliens and Alien 3 analogy, when you see heroes and male heroes that you have looked up to for years, or that even just went on a simple character arc, become failures, it's depressing, it's demoralizing. This constant message of men will fail you is incredibly demoralizing, and it is for women as well, because it has been a lie. You know, they put Pedro Pascal in these movies earlier in the summer with no evidence and claimed that he is everything that women want and that he is exactly what we want to see in masculinity in Hollywood. That is a complete lie, because the kind of men that have been sold in the movies are not what women like either. Fact. Women do like masculine men. Why was there a trope of men saving women in a lot of stories? Well, it actually was not because of this promotion that, oh, women are weak all the time that people have made it into. No, it's actually because a lot of women like that story. They want to be saved by the man. That's why that was in so many stories, and that has been completely removed. But yeah, remember earlier this year when I got so mad when Kevin Feige said that they had to subdue Johnny Storm's character from the devil may care womanizer that he was supposed to be in the comics, and they did. By the way, Chris Evans is actually a better version of that character, and I will stand by that. That is a lie. You know, one of the biggest tropes that women like in media is the bad boy trope. And hey, if you can make it so that he's actually a good guy at heart and actually the hero, that's a perfect version of it. Women love that trope. And hey, I just like seeing men being men on screen. So if you want to make one more flawed, like James Bond level of womanizing and all that, go for it. I want to see men with flaws in these movies. I want to see men be actually masculine. I want to see them actually be heroes. But guess what? All of the aspects that women find attractive about men have been drawn out of these movies, and it's all for the same narrative that men will fail you over and over again. And trust me, for a woman as well, that is incredibly demoralizing. It's why I get a culture shock when, let's see, I see foreign media and men are there and they're not perfect. You shouldn't have perfect characters, but they're allowed to actually be men, actually feel and seem like men, actually have that masculinity to them. And that's why I think a lot of people are leaving for foreign media, because I guess foreign countries have not yet decided that all men need to be emasculated failures. But American media has been taken over people who just want to push this narrative over and over again. And it is why people are turned away and they never want to watch these movies again. They are not getting those actual masculine male figures that they miss, those actual heroes, actually seeing men being men. They're just getting all of this terrible overt messaging about how men will fail you and are just being depressed by that. They're having these people, in this case that I'm talking about, these women, take their own resentment on the male figures in their life out on them. But you know what? I'm sick of it. I miss when men could be strong. I miss when men could be noble. I miss when they could be mature. I miss that they could be heroes you could rely on, because they can be in real life. I miss when they could be cads or devil may care or womanizing or you know, just the kind of the bad boy and all of that. I miss when they could have those flaws and they weren't being subdued and humiliated and emasculated and made into failures just because of somebody's desire for revenge in real life. But here's the interesting thing about all this. Like, I've talked about it before again, and sometimes I've gotten people who write to me and say stuff like, hey, I'm really glad you're chiming in on this subject. As a woman, it carries more weight. Does it really? Do you guys know how much hate I have gotten as a woman specifically for talking on this topic? I got the Redditors seething and going after me for talking about this topic and mocking me and putting words in my mouth. You have to wonder, what is so threatening about a woman talking about how she doesn't like the way male characters are portrayed in media? You know, you'd think, you know, these people talk so much about how, you know, we want to, I guess, is it about elevating the female characters or something? Or wouldn't we want to hear what women have to say about it? But apparently it's either laughable for me to be talking about it, or I must just not have any sort of self-esteem, or like what do you guys want from me? Am I supposed to either A, not care, or B, am I supposed to also dislike men on this level? Is that the goal of it? Like, why is it so threatening? Why is it so threatening for anyone, man or woman, but especially in this case, woman, to say this isn't actually what we want from male characters in media? This isn't what we like. We would like something else. Why is that so threatening that these people would get that mad at me for saying anything? Do you think that we really want weak men in real life who are pansies or idiotic or incompetent or don't have any self-esteem or aren't assertive whatsoever? Is that what we're supposed to really want, or are we supposed to just not want men in real life at all? The fact that this is such a threatening topic for me to take on kind of makes me want to go into it even further. And it makes me think, if this is such a threatening thing to have male characters actually be men, actually be masculine in movies, if that is the ultimate taboo, if that is the ultimate thing that we should not be doing in movies and the ultimate threat, then that just makes me want to do it even more. And you won't stop that eventually. Historically in Hollywood, when there is a taboo over something, that just makes people want to break it down even more. But I think that it would actually do people a lot of good in these movies to actually see male heroes again and be reminded that men are not all failures. But guess what? You are never going to get that unless there's an act of God. You are never going to get that from people like Leslie Headland and Kathleen Kennedy. These people are set in their ways. They will not change, and they have not. Thank goodness Jennifer Lee is gone, but you have to understand there are still a lot of people, both women and men, who agree with this kind of thinking, who are still working in the industry, and that's why this stuff still gets churned out. So this is not a call for change from these people in Hollywood, because I'm not expecting it. This is a call instead for other people with money, investors, the people that make this stuff happen. You need to no longer give your money to these people who are putting out these narratives because they are not selling. Audiences across the world do not want this. You need to seek out filmmakers and writers out there because they need the money. Filmmaking is very expensive and marketing is very expensive, and they need the money. Rich people, seek out those people who are actually going to make the movies with the characters. In this case, the male characters that people like, and support those movies. Support those movies coming out that everyone wants to see. And there is going to be prestige and a pride in being involved with these things. There is no pride being involved with these demoralizing pieces of slop that are coming out from Hollywood. So this is a call for people with money and investors to please invest in the right people making movies again, because it is a sinking ship with these awful people who are working in Hollywood as they continue to put out this garbage day in and day out. And I'm going to continue to work for a day where we are not getting our slop from these companies, and this is not the mainstream, and we can see strong masculine heroes who go on character arcs and actually keep that character development, working to see that again. Thank you all for watching. If you want to support my work on this video, if you agree with this video, if you disagree, leave a comment below. It all helps in the algorithm. If you want to support my work, please consider becoming a member or a patron, as these great people have done. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys next time.